home to 63 million people. 4 countries, the 3rd largest city in Europe, and one of the most diverse populations on earth. The United Kingdom is a country that is in grave need of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Of these 63 million, 25% claim they are atheist or agnostic, and only 6% attend a religious service weekly. The United Kingdom is also home to the fastest-growing Muslim population in Europe, with nearly 400 mosques in the City of London. Who will reach this diverse, rapidly growing, but spiritually dying country with the hope of salvation?
We are the Ruwersma family, and God has called us to be missionaries to the United Kingdom. We are sent out of Calvary Baptist Church in Charlotte, Michigan, where Mark Booth serves as pastor. Our primary objective will be church restoration and church planting. We believe God has uniquely prepared us for this purpose, and we are excited to follow His leading.
I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, where my parents were serving as missionaries. The Lord mercifully showed me I was a sinner and needed forgiveness of sins. As a young girl, I repented of my sins and by faith asked Jesus Christ to save me. A few years later, I was baptized. When I was 6 years old, my parents moved to Portugal. I was able to experience firsthand the life of a missionary while growing up in a foreign country. Even as a child, I was involved in the ministry. While serving with my family in Portugal, God gave me a passion for missions that would not cease to grow as the years passed.
I had the privilege of being raised in a Christian home where I was taught the truth of God's Word. I put my faith and trust in Jesus Christ at an early age and was baptized shortly after. During high school, I was able to see the spiritual needs around the world by going on mission trips to Mexico and Haiti. God called me to preach during my senior year of high school after reading Romans 10:14. How then shall they call on Him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in Him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher?
The United Kingdom is famous for its rich history, prominent landmarks, and beautiful countryside. From the hustle and bustle of London to the gentle green rolling hills and cozy quaint villages of the Cotswolds, the United Kingdom is a land as steeped in history and culture as it is in beauty. With a population of over 8 million people, London is one of the world's biggest and busiest cities. Renowned for famous landmarks such as Buckingham Palace, Big Ben, Tower Bridge, Piccadilly Circus, and the double-decker buses. It is one of the most visited cities in the world.
The United Kingdom is also known for great revivals and a rich Christian heritage. God has used many men and women from the United Kingdom to blaze the trail for modern missions and spread the gospel throughout the world. Reflecting on the past, some may wonder why it is necessary to send missionaries to the United Kingdom. In the last century, and especially since World War II, church attendance and practicing Christianity have rapidly declined. As church attendance diminished, thousands of churches have been closed and converted into mosques, pubs, housing developments, or even torn down.
Sadly, millions of people today do not have the knowledge of Jesus Christ or the hope He gives. This emptiness is driving them to find happiness elsewhere. Islam has become the fastest growing religion in the United Kingdom, with the average age of a Muslim being only 25. There have been many British who have converted to Islam in hopes to fulfill their spiritual void. In the midst of an apathetic attitude towards God, there are still remnants of Christians who have a desire to stand firm on the truth of God's Word. Hundreds of churches continue to worship with less than 10 people attending each Sunday. Many of these churches are without a pastor and are struggling to keep the church from closing. These faithful Christians are praying that God would bring a revival once again and send laborers to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ throughout their country.
Although the United Kingdom is a spiritually destitute country, it is a place where God desires to see souls saved. We spent 2 years at a church restoration effort in England during our missionary internship. We witnessed many people make a profession of faith and grow in their walk with God. I was able to preach frequently in different churches, lead congregational singing, and direct the outreach and visitation ministry. I also drove a van for each meeting, giving young people an opportunity to attend church.
While living in England, I was afforded a position teaching religious education in over 10 public schools. I also was able to teach English to international students. Not only were we able to impart influence within the school, but we also hosted a weekly after-school Bible study in our home. Each day brought new challenges, but also gave us daily opportunities to counsel teenagers and, most importantly, share the gospel. Several of these relationships with students led to Bible studies with families. These relationships are some of our fondest memories of our time spent in the UK, and we are thankful for the cultural insight that this experience provided us. 4 times a week, we served in the teen and children outreach programs at our church. During the weekends, we often had the opportunity to travel and serve in churches throughout the country. It was during our internship that God gave us a burden to reach the British people with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
The experience we gained will be a great asset as we plan to implement many of these ministries when we return to the United Kingdom. With many church buildings empty, or a small gathering of believers, our desire is that God would use us to revive these churches and start new churches. We will prayerfully seek to accomplish this goal through evangelizing the lost and discipleship of believers. Although the need is great, we know that our God is greater. Just as the prophet Habakkuk prayed, "O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years," we ask you to join us in prayer that God would revive his work in the United Kingdom.